it true that we really do need to invoke the Mental Health Act more and provide involuntary care? I know EB has talked about it, but is there any action happening on that involuntary care front that you can see?
From what I've seen so far, no. He has said that he agrees with it now after his years of advocating for decriminalization in drugs and destigmatizing drug use, which in my view is an absolute catastrophe. Like, who would ever destigmatize drug use? If you have children, there's no way you tell them, "Oh, it's okay. Go try heroin, give it a shot, go, oh, sure, go smoke some crack, or I don't know what they do with it, or snort it. Go do that." What parent would do that? I mean, it's sheer folly to say that we shouldn't stigmatize drug use. Drug use should be stigmatized. I'm not talking about beating up on the people who end up addicted. I'm talking about drug use, just like cigarette use, we stigmatized for decades. Like we banished cigarette smokers from bars, and they have to go outside and stand in the cold, and they're not even allowed to stand within 6 feet of the front of an office building. Oh, it's okay to stigmatize them, but then when it comes to drugs, oh, we have to say that they're normal people, and it's nice to stand next to a drug addict who is screaming at you or scaring you or has no pants on or something. I mean, it's fantasy land, and this whole what are we? My view of what we need to have is we need to have involuntary care, because we see, I've gone walking downtown, and I'm sure you have too, and seen these poor people lying in the rain, face down, not even knowing where they are, uh, literally, I guess, freezing to death, and people just walk by and act like that's an okay situation now, because, oh, that's their right to lie in the dirt, and we shouldn't care because this is the rights that they fought for. The drug DULF, the Drug Users Liberation Front, and VANDU, the Vancouver area network of drug users, VANDU and DULF, have pushed to say these people have a right to have the lifestyle they want. Well, now they're lying face down, uh, completely damaged, probably freezing to death, probably sick, and also out of it, unconscious, or possibly sometimes even dead, and people just walk by. If it were, God forbid, my child, I would want that safety van to come by, scoop her up, take her somewhere, triage her, get her dry, cleaned up, find out what's going on, and then detox with whatever's needed to do it, and then into an immediate program somewhere in a part of BC where they're not in the drug milieu, and they can start to get better and learn some skills. And wouldn't that be great if one of my children ended up in that situation, or you know your husband, or anybody you love, wouldn't you prefer they were being taken care of and you knew that someone took them somewhere warm? And yes, they are not able to make a decision at that point. They're not thinking straight. They're in the grips of addiction. You, we don't allow people to change their wills in BC after they've developed dementia. Why? Because after you're mentally ill, you can't make good decisions anymore, and you can be influenced inappropriately. There's all estate law is deep into people trying to influence an elderly person with dementia to change their will, and have succeeded, and then the rest of the family has to oppose that change because it was done when the person was, what is it, non compos mentis or whatever, when it was done. And these rules have been developed through the ages because they know there are times in your life when you're not capable of thinking and rationalizing and making appropriate decisions. And anybody who's lying on the street down there, deeply into fentanyl or whatever these addictions are, is not thinking straight, and they can't make decisions. They're not barely human thinking anymore at that point. The
Well,
drugs are thinking for them.
well, sometimes, activists will talking points will go like this. Well, Indigenous people are disproportionately represented in prison system and in uh, situations of addiction. So therefore, your policies are just anti-Indigenous. So in other words, the Indigenous lens has to be applied to everything. So all of our policies kind of stack up and are these policies that clearly are not working. There's always an argument from the Indigenous lens that, well, they're this way because we need to recognize the legacy of trauma of residential schools and how this is impacting everyone down the line. So I've heard that argument so many times, but I guess it's what I'm saying is that is this evidence that uh, these policies that are affecting so many people in a negative way are being justified on the wrong basis? That is, the indigenous argument is being used to shape policies that are not helping indigenous people at all.
Yeah. And let's also remember that Indigenous children are also the word overrepresented in foster care situations. So, um, and these are bands and chiefs who claim they want self-government, all the money to conduct their all cultural ceremonies and have their cultural. And I don't remember anybody trying to stop someone from having an event on in the reserve or like, but I believe that they can do cultural ceremonies that they want. But if this is if they are overrepresented and you want to be a self-governing, I've often said, well, then why aren't you coming down and getting these poor dear girls and boys who are down here lying face down and bring them home and use your cultural traditions to bring them back to health? Certainly the money is being given to the bands to do this. They're getting money for, I've been told, because I get calls from people saying they get money, saying this is money that's supposed to go to specifically getting people off drugs who are in your band. And then this woman said the money comes in and everybody's sitting there playing cards. And if someone really does need an addictive, oh, I'll let them go to the main hospital. I mean, so so I I say, like, why don't you care that it's your people there? But then I say, but it shouldn't be like that anyway. We should all be the same people. A human being is a human being is a human being. Uh, we all need to be picked up off the street and taken somewhere to help them. And I just think it's backwards to say you're overrepresented. Well, I don't know what else to say about that. Is that an excuse to leave them lying there? I don't think so. And I don't think it's a good plan. And I don't think this woke oppressor oppressed paradigm works at all. I am completely opposed to this. What it's just it doesn't work, and it becomes an excuse for who's the greater victim. And it's all about celebrating that I'm a bigger victim than you are, so I should get more. And I want to switch the thinking in British Columbia to say, let's celebrate achievement and success and people moving forward. Yes. No, I guess really they're clamping down on free speech with the Health Professions Act.
Right.
And I also think there's a real risk to free speech in the legal profession now with the new Legal Professions Act. Yes, the Law Society is taking the government to court, but things are proceeding forward with government political appointees being put in charge of governing lawyers and doctors now, which I consider very dangerous. The new act, which came into force on April 1st, Bill 36, the Health Professions Act, health, I think it's Health Professions Occupations Act, HPOA, is frightening. And the thing that stands out for me the most is that it allows the government access to your private health records without a warrant and for any reason.
Mhm.
So imagine how that could be abused. There's somebody saying stuff they don't like. They go get their medical records, find out they're having trouble with, I don't know, what, whatever, they're on a certain drug or they're getting help with something very private, and they can destroy their career over that. So that's, and the other thing is, some psychologists who are in my riding approached me as a constituent saying they were very worried about this because the psychologists are being told that their audit notes or the notes they take during sessions with their clients will be open for review by government people. So, and this is not this is an exaggeration. And they had already told me that one psychologist said, I've lost two clients who are practicing doctors who are having marital and other personal issues, and they cannot risk anymore coming for help because they're afraid that the government will get the notes about their sessions and use it and destroy their livelihood. And a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists are saying they don't want to practice anymore because how do you take care of people if you can't take notes? You can't remember every detail from session to session in your head. You have to take some notes, and those are now open for review. I mean, who want take a politician like me? What if I've got problems going on in a, like, say if I was going through marriage break, you don't know, or dealing with something terrible or sad or difficult, and I know that an opposing member wants to get access to that. Yeah, you bet they'll get it. And it'll
Mm,
be, oh, sorry, it got leaked out somehow. Whoopsie daisy. And or just brought in to say, oh, this doctor's not competent anymore because they had a suicide attempt 3 years ago and now they're getting counseling for, you know what I mean? Like you don't know what people are going through. But anyway, that's happening. And
mm,
there are other things about the act that are dangerous, and also that if a doctor is not allowed to give any advice that goes against the public health officer's viewpoints, which dives into the mandates problem again. So even if your client, your patient, is not at all suitable for a shot or whatever that's being pushed by the government and could, in fact, damage them, they're not allowed to tell them that. I
mm.
mean, I don't know why we're going this far with this. It seems crazy. But that's a real limit. And then doctors who don't go along with these things can be fined, I think it's like up to $500,000 and 2 years in jail. I mean, this isn't a joke. And doctors are really worried about this. And so, and legitimately so, I think. But it's been pushed through. And so that's a limitation. But Bill C9 has a lot of people worried. And I know it's not going to be used against Charlotte Cates. It's going to be used against people like me.
Yeah, well, maybe we could end on this note. So there's a leadership race underway for the BC Conservative Party. And but that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be an election in the province of BC. We don't know. But given all of the things that we just talked about,
Mm-hmm.
the changes to these acts that affect our healthcare, um, the kind of secret backroom deals that are being done with Indigenous people, people are very concerned that suddenly there's announcement after announcement about a deal that's been worked out with with this First Nation or that First Nation, Musqueam included. It was like a this bombshell announcement taking everyone by surprise on a Friday afternoon. Well, that's
We
the
haven't even
government of
talked about
Canada.
that one today,
We
David.
haven't even talked about that one. That's the government of Canada. But how how is it that this government can stand? How can we kind of eke along without an election? It seems like there's so much uh, these incredible, tense, difficult, insane, crazy things are happening, but we're not going to the polls.
I know it's hard to imagine that we're stuck with this government until the end of 2028. I mean, it's unsustainable. The everything's cracking. Nothing's working. Healthcare is absolutely in shambles. Absolutely in shambles. Uh, Nothing's working. People are afraid to get sick now. You know, you go for help and everybody's told, oh, it's just in your mind, or just go home. Sorry, there's a lineup. We can't do anything for you. This is not okay. This is, I mean, we've reached really the end point of just decades of, moving more and more towards like communist administration of everything. But so I don't know. And without a non-confidence vote, there's really no other way to bring this government down. David Eby said this week that he is going to suspend certain portions of DRIPA that involve the mining business, but those are very thin slivers of DRIPA overall. And he's even taking heat from the chiefs over those small amendments. We'll see if he even introduces them, but he has declared that vote a confidence vote. And is it TG? TG, the head of the BC Assembly of First Nations or something? He said, well, David Eby has three Indigenous members of his caucus, and they better not vote in favor of this. So,
Yeah.
so now, and this reveals the conflict that exists if you're in government and your first loyalty is to your band rather than to your constituents. That's something that I've been bringing out with respect to Musqueam as well. You're in a conflict now because your interests as a band are now in conflict with the people you're supposed to be representing. That's the very definition of a conflict. Your
Mhm.
personal interests are you going to put them ahead of your constituents? And if those three members don't vote with their government, what does that mean? Is the government going to come down? So this is going to be an interesting couple, like we're off this week, but the following week and the week after, we'll be watching this really carefully and maybe there will be an election over this. Maybe David Eby's sick of dealing with this and would love to throw it back to the voters and say, you fix this. I mean, we really are coming apart at the seams now. And so the Musqueam agreement really rocked people's worlds. Yes, that's the federal government, but David Eby said he didn't know about it. Then we found he was at the signing ceremony. Then he said he was at the signing ceremony, but didn't know what he was there for. Then later we found out the federal government said, yes, he had been fully briefed. I mean, that agreement is a whole other podcast with you, I guess.
Well, that's right. It's almost like there's the confidence votes in the legislature, which
Yes.
can bring down the government, but it seems like the confidence amongst the voters and regular British Columbians is evaporating very quickly, and it's not necessarily just with staunch conservatives. It seems that there's all this levels of doubt creeping in amongst more rank and file NDP people who are just they work union jobs in the north. They work on pipelines. They work on all these things. So it just seems like an unsustainable situation to have all of this stuff going on and all these kind of secret deals. Uh, it's like, oh, well, I guess that's the other point is the media. It's like,
Oh,
shouldn't the media just be
pounding.
tearing them to shreds right now over all of these
Yeah.
bizarre secret deals and lack of transparency? Why aren't they going after them? I saw an interview with TG by Jordan Armstrong.
Yeah. I saw it too.
He almost asked a hard question, but it was very
Everybody's
softball.
so, I don't know why people are so afraid of this issue. They're laughing their heads off at us. We say one word and you all go running and say, oh, you're a racist. Or now they're apparently calling David Eby a colonialist. The leaked tapes showing that they're calling him names now. And I actually have some sympathy for him. I feel like writing him a letter, say, what does it feel like, David, to be called things you're not? Now you know how it feels because you've called me a few things, right? But he's being called a colonialist. I don't know if they use the R word, but the thing is like these and I am in shock at the behavior of the legislative journalists. They they and our politicians for the last 25 years have allowed this thing to become an absolute disaster. If there had been good journalism being done over the last 25 years and proper governance where we weren't just running and hiding and fearful of someone calling us a racist, then we wouldn't be in this pickle. But they've all been sort of cushioning this issue and never wanting to ask the tough questions because it would be rude or offensive or bad. But you have to all, here's the principle I abide by. If you are taking public money, taxpayers' money from me and you and everybody else listening, all questions are on the table. All questions. It doesn't matter what your ancestry is. If you're taking public money, we get to know everything about what you're doing with it and where it's going. And we need results. And if we're not getting results, the money goes away. And if you don't want questions, then raise the money yourself through private investment funds or bake sales or whatever other way, and then no one will bother you. But
Mm.
it's amazing. Like Keith Baldry, even Vaughn Palmer, Rob Shaw. Oh, Rob Shaw. Like these guys, and Stephen Quinn at CBC and Mike Smith. Mike Smith won't even. He's never invited me on his show. Can you believe that? I'm asking some of the toughest questions in this province, and Mike Smith doesn't even phone me. Stephen Quinn, they'll allow people to come on and say all manner of horrible, and Jazz Joe Hall, they'll allow people to come on for a full half an hour and talk about me and say, oh, she's horrible, she's vile, she's disgusting, she's diabolical. But they never call me and give me my own half an hour. And it's so biased. If anybody thought before that it wasn't as maybe as bad as you were thinking it was, I can tell you it's actually 100 times worse than you thought it was. I've even left the ledge sometimes and gone to Vaughn and say, I gave you something good today for your column. I asked a question about the Musqueam deal saying, skip the private property. Let's talk about all the public stuff you just gave them. They now have the international shipping lanes, international borders, the port of Vancouver, all of the public property throughout the Lower Mainland, which would include parks, hospitals, schools, military reserves, you name it, boulevards, beaches, foreshores, you know, on and on. And so does that give them the right now to change the names of everything? So even if they don't, they say they're not coming and like throwing you out of your house, you're now pinched in around all of the ownership that's all around you. And the problem with this, well, there are so many problems with this, but one of the biggest ones is that if they're given joint decision-making authority over all this, and we don't like the decisions, you can't vote out the band. I mean,
Yeah.
so, and
Boy.
if they get the right to tax us in the future, then that's literally taxation without representation, which was what they said you could no longer do in the United States because that's what the monarchy did. If you can't vote them out, then you're not allowed to tax people. And so this is where we're headed. It's just astounding to me it's gotten this far.
Well, maybe that's a good point
Extraordinary.
to end on. I know I'm involved in public companies and have been in my career. And
Mhm.
there's a principle in securities law. If you're going to be taking money from the public, you have to have what's called full, true, and plain disclosure. So that principle, to my mind, what has happened is that the indigenous grievance narrative is provided kind of a smokescreen behind which that full, true, and plain disclosure is hiding. Well, we don't have to because of the sensitivities of this and that.
Yeah.
I think that's not really fair to the public.
No.
And that's not a racist thing to say. I don't think this sort of smearing it all as racist, just simply asking for full, true, and plain disclosure, how is that somehow involving race? It's not. It's the public's money. It's taxpayer funded. These questions should be asked,
Mhm.
and you're asking them, we're asking them, and maybe the mainstream media will someday ask them. I'm being generous. So,
Well, I hope they do start asking them. And I also say, okay, call me whatever names you want. I still have the questions. Okay. Let's get past all the name calling because they use names to shut you down because it is awful to be called names. Who likes it? It's unpleasant. It's
mhm.
really, and it's unfair. But how do you prove a negative, or disprove a negative? Like, that expression, when did you stop beating your wife? What? I was never beating my wife. So, but but they just call you names. And I've done some research on this. Apparently, the tactic of calling people racist has been used from 40. It started being used about 50 years ago to shut people down, and it worked for a long time. But people are now saying, okay, enough's enough. We now have to talk about the policy and where the money's going. And, but they call it colonial harm when you ask the questions. That's the new verbiage for that.
Oh yeah,
You're
the old
inflicting
harms are just
colonial
being
harm.
people are being re-traumatized
Yeah.
simply by asking questions. And
Yeah.
well, clearly we need to talk further on all of this. There's so
Yeah.
much more to get
Yeah.
into.
I know.
Uh, but we'll leave it there for now. Dallas Brodie, thank you so much for taking time to speak to me and to talk to our audience. It's very much appreciated. We're going to be following very closely the whole um, leadership debate and how things work out with Yuri Fulmer. And I thank you again. And all the best as you get back into the legislature.
Thank you, David. And I can say if people really want to help me, probably the best way right now is to join the Conservative Party and vote for Yuri. And because we have a solid deal. And by the way, nobody else came to me with this courageous proposal. So I have a lot of admiration for him, and he's a highly respected manager and um, a very decent human being. And I really hope that he wins. So thank you for your
Yes,
show, and thanks for having me on, David, very
yes,
much.
we have reached out to the Fulmer campaign and hope to have him to have an interview with him as soon as possible. I know there's lots going on in the campaign, but it's still a fair ways away until everything is voted on.
Well,
But
the sign up for the memberships, if you want to vote in it, is the deadline is April 18th. That's why all
right,
the leadership candidates are hustling right now. But we'll just see what happens with that. I'm sort of sitting back and watching, and um, you know, yeah.
okay. All right. Well, thanks for filling us in on all that and talking about all these critical issues to the province of BC. Dallas Brodie, leader of One BC, member of the Legislative Assembly for Vancouver Colchena. I get that right?
Yep, you got that right.
Okay. All right. Thanks again. And thanks everyone else for watching. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you
Bye.
very much, everybody. Bye, David.
Bye.